Good morning, folks. This is the newest episode of Brogressive. I'm here with my co-host, Beleh, and we have a special guest in the form of Jack, we said Cocchiarella, right, with an I-A.
You could say it however way. No one has ever pronounced it correctly, including myself, so you say what is best for you and easiest to get through. But
See, the best part is he's a total sweetheart. Let's bring him on, Jack.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me. Under better circumstances would have been great. If this was a first week recap of the Kamala Harris presidency, I would have been a lot more thrilled about that. If it was, I probably wouldn't be paying attention so much. I'd probably be recovering a bit. It was difficult not to immediately segue us into this, but it was difficult seeing Tim Walz on Maddow last night. And then he held a local press conference in Minnesota as well. And you just look at a guy who cares so deeply, and especially when those federal aid freezes affected so many organizations that just provide food for people. Like that is what Donald Trump got in the way of. People unsure where their next meal was coming from yesterday or the weeks to follow. And the big moment for Tim Walz early, or I guess 2 years ago or a year ago, was passing legislation to ensure free hot lunch and breakfast for kids throughout Minnesota. And now people are unsure if they can eat. And you're just like, how is this not our vice president? Like, shouldn't this be what a politician is? It's just heartbreaking to watch.
It is. I'm glad you said that, because it's like every time I look in the news, I've called this last week the 9 days where my hair has gone gray, because every time you open your phone, you're like, President Trump dismantled inspector generals. For those who don't know, inspector generals are the independent people who make sure government agencies don't do bad things. It's like President Trump dismantles...
Draining the swamp. No, we're draining the swamp, Max. We're draining the swamp.
Draining the swamp.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the
Inspector General.
The Republican response, where it's like, I think it was Susan Collins was like, I'm so surprised that Mr. President Trump.
So shocked.
It's like, he didn't want to get rid of waste. It's like, well, you laid this out in your agenda. And I'm like, where have these people been? It's just like baffling. I don't know. Like, I don't even know who they're serving at this point in that kind of messaging. If they enjoy being humiliated by him, if they're all in cahoots, where like Trump calls up Susan Collins, is like, Susan, I need you to put out this like the most dumbass memo. I need you to just humiliate yourself. But yeah, it's the most ridiculous response from Republicans who just seem shocked that Donald Trump is a bad person who doesn't keep his promises and is willing to betray anyone to serve himself. It's like, oh, this is new?
We've been doing this stance for like 10 years. I mean, like, I'm 21, right? Like, I remember when Trump was first elected. It's like, okay, this guy's an asshole. Like, we know his shtick. Everybody knows it. Whenever, like, they put shit out like that, it's like, oh my God, a leopard, it ate my face. It's like, yeah. Don't go near the leopard. Don't say it's not going to eat your face. And then don't be surprised when it eats your face. Like, are you fucking stupid? But...
It has been difficult, especially seeing the Republican response. I know there's been, or at least there was last night, a lot of conversation about how Dems are messaging on this and how some have really just kind of been quiet or maybe taken a back seat. And I think the perfect discourse on this, because it's really easy to do the blame Democrats the game when we don't have a majority or really the ability to do much in any chamber or like in any way. But the fact that so many members are still unable to just shoot direct-to-camera video and say, here's my response, here is what we need to do to combat this, here are our next steps. You know, Jasmine Crockett was on her way to her local swearing in her district, and just like shooting at a low angle with her sunglasses on in the car driving there on an Instagram Live for 15 minutes, being like, this is what's going on right now. This is our response. And the inability for so many Democrats to do that is really troubling when we just need people talking. It's like if Trump has shown us anything, it's just like flood the zone. And of course, we don't want to flood the zone with shit, but just like flood the zone with a volume of information, talk about these things so people at least know that you're there. And the fact that we don't have elected Dems who can just sit down and get in front of the camera, it doesn't have to be special. Just speak. We just need more of that right now.
Well, it's a good point that you're raising. It's like, it's the, I don't know if you've listened to this Klein show on like the war on attention. It's this whole thing of this little device is blasting us 24/7 with whatever we want. And it's like, we're not going to meet people by making a post that says Donald Trump is working for like a family, it was Wall Street, not Main Street. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Go on fucking TikTok and record a video. Like, I'm like, go on fucking Instagram Reels. Like, people aren't going to answer to that stuff. Like, again, when we're in this fight for attention, shutting up and just sitting there quietly, people are going to think we're not doing anything. And that's exactly what killed us the last 4 years, right? you ask people what President Biden did, and they're like,
I don't know. I
like,
didn't see him. He kind of
Exactly.
disappeared. And it's like the thing with the getting on TikTok that just drives me so crazy is that I hear a lot of people in the party talking about it's like, we need more videos that get clipped and posted on TikTok. I'm like, you can do your own clipping and post it. There aren't like there's no clip community. There's no like board of governors of clipping of political TikTok. It's like, yeah, sure, you got to put out a little bit of effort for people to start making like cute edits of you to Charlie XCX songs, but it's just like, no, you can go and do this yourself. Again, it's just volume. People want to hear from other people. This is what this is all about. And that's just been driving me most crazy. Sure, a bit of it is my own selfish interest as a person who does video all day and talks about these things. It's like, yes, the more hits that Elizabeth Warren does, or just like any Democrats, like it's great for me. I got more content to talk about and share with people. But no, you should be doing this yourselves. And it's like so many members have just now started up their YouTube channels to post whenever they go on MSNBC. And there is such a bank of this content that we have, and somehow we're just sitting on it for no reason, and it leaves me pretty confused.
It's just kind of outright embarrassing because I'm not sure how familiar you are with like how those like comms things work, and like I'm gonna go out on a limb here so you kind of understand. Like they have a whole comms team. It's like if you have a dedicated team of 3 or 4 people, at the very least, you could ask them to be like, hey, make sure we have decent social media posts. Like Beleh's been a big proponent of actually getting on social media and like meeting people where they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think a big issue we have is that like we tend to go on mainstream media a lot, and that makes a lot of sense because a lot of older voters do watch mainstream media, and the MSNBCs of the world, they're out there. But I think we tend to neglect podcasts and other alternative forms of media. I think we do it based on, hey, like, for example, Joe Rogan. Whatever you think about him, don't care. He has the largest fucking audience in the world, right? His podcast is the #1 podcast in the world. Why would you not go on his podcast if you're invited on his podcast? I don't think Kamala Harris would have won if she went on her podcast. I'm not talking about that. But you're going on Joe Rogan's podcast not to become friends with him. It's more so to reach out to the people that listen to him. Going on podcasts like Joe Rogan, you don't have to love Joe Rogan to go on his podcast. You don't have to become best friends with him and go to his like comedy show afterwards. But go on his podcast because he has the largest fucking audience in the world, right? Go speak to the people that listen to him, right? Those people are only hearing like right-wing misinformation or right-wing whatever you want to call it on his podcast. So go on there, provide an alternative, an alternative way, and then maybe you'll pick up some voters. But if anything, it shows that you're like brave enough to go into spheres that you aren't necessarily quote unquote welcome on. I think that's an issue Democrats have is that, hey, this person said something bad in the past and we don't agree with everything they say. So we have to deplatform them, right? We can't go on their podcast and whatever you say. I don't care if you like Bernie Sanders or not, but when he went on Joe Rogan in 2020, that episode kind of blew up. And then you had this coalition of just Democrats that came out. Even Joe Biden's team like tweeted something about Joe Rogan saying something about trans athletes in the past. I'm like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to expand your base, right? You're supposed to expand the media platforms that you go on, not narrow them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think something that's often overlooked with the discussion of podcasting, not with just, Joe Rogan, but Trump going on Aiden Ross or
Theo
talking
Vaughn,
to
who's not even
Theo
like
Vaughn,
political,
Lex Friedman, talking with the Nelk boys, is it like it's something that's so important. And why my theory on the case on like the podcasting in this election is that sure, it was good for Trump to go to those places for him. It presented him as a normal guy who could talk for an hour, sound regular, which kind of dismissed, although it wasn't true, this Democratic argument that, he's a fascist, his generals are calling him Hitler. When he's just a normal guy talking UFC with Joe Rogan, you're like, oh, this is blown out of proportion, which is one of the worst things attached to the Democratic brand is that we overreact and then underact, like we just don't do anything after raising so much concern. But why I think that Trump didn't even necessarily need to go on those podcasts, sure, it was beneficial for him, is that these people are already priming their audiences with these kind of just like conservative adjacent feelings about so much. It's just like the Joe Rogan podcast, sure, like when Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on, it's a fun conversation when him and Shane Gillis have like share like a 24 pack and are just like ridiculous. It's like those episodes are fun. But a lot of it is just like the just asking questions, Tucker Carlson nonsense, priming people to be conspiratorial, priming people to have, uncomfortable feelings towards our foreign intervention, good or bad, specifically with Ukraine. And I feel like a lot of what you see from Rogan or Nelk or Barstool is this kind of just like what we talked about, like the manosphere culture, which primes their audience to, one, be distrustful of whatever institution that they're constantly poking at, which was Democrats and the Biden administration, which ultimately kind of got dumped on Kamala Harris's shoulders. But it primes them to want some alternative, which Trump presents himself as. And so that's why I think that when we're having this conversation about not only just going to these places, we need to be priming these people long term. There's been such an important conversation about how for the longest time, maybe the past 2, 3, maybe even 4 election cycles, Democrats have been so focused on turnout and get out the vote. And we haven't been in places, we haven't been in communities for even more than a couple of months before an election. And what's so important about that podcasting sphere is, again, they're constantly priming their audience to kind of fall into these anti-institution buckets in which people are just inevitably going to view Democrats as the mainstream, and that they need to oppose that just because of the belief that they're being fed every single day about why all of these things in their lives are so broken, why the health and wellness space is also such a great place for MAGA to thrive, because it is a part of that just asking questions, and it fits into you're kind of a victim of your circumstance, and your circumstance is like this Democratic nanny state that's not doing enough, that's protecting the corporate interest of Kroger or any pharmaceutical company. And so when you're constantly like inundating people with that, then they are bound to be drawn to a figure like Donald Trump. And that is something that we lack, especially on the left. It's not just that we fail at going to those places. We're not building those. But it's difficult because you can't really build a Joe Rogan that doesn't exist.
No.
But we certainly need to be focusing on the cultural issues that are persistent and constant and discussed by just regular people every day, that we can then be priming them to think, oh, Democrats are winning on the issue that I just talk about in my day-to-day life, which Republicans certainly did.
A really good point, Jack. I wanted to say 2 things. I think the reason why podcasts are doing so well now and why they're going to do well in the future is because it's so easy just to turn them on, where you could be like cleaning and listening to something. You could be driving, putting on a podcast, whatever it is. So I think it's a lot easier to consume. Number 2, you bring up a good point about like showing people that Democrats do care about a specific issue. For example, I think it was the trans prison surgery ad in Pennsylvania that went, that the Trump team was really putting a lot of money behind. Kamala Harris basically saying that, hey, I'm going to, provide surgeries for trans inmates. Whatever you think about the issue, don't really care. I think the reason why it did well is not necessarily because like Americans hate trans people. I think because it reinforced something about Democrats, that they only care about these cultural issues, right? And we obviously don't know. We obviously know that's not true. But the average
Republicans
American
who cared about the cultural issue, right? It's them who put $100 million behind the ad. But yeah, it's been flipped.
Exactly. It's been flipped on our asses to make it look like we don't care about the economy. We don't care about rising prices. Shit, we don't care about the border now. Like, that is the perception of Democrats in the mainstream. So it's about actually going out there and talking about issues on every single platform. Talking about shit that's not too pretty, right? Like housing policy. Max loves this shit. He's a YIMBY. And like talking about housing policy and why we can't get affordable housing in local cities. Max tells me about this all the time. But talking about issues that maybe aren't the most flashy, but a lot of people will care about once they hear them.
Yeah, and I think the idea, sorry, Max, to cut you off, the idea of like what the kitchen table issues are have sort of changed and morphed in a way.
Exactly.
And I like to lay out like 3 or 4 of the kind of like weather political issues. For me, it's like, I call them that because it's like, what are the political issues that people can talk about in the same way that they talk about the weather? Where they're like, it's a cold one outside. It's like, that's a nonsensical nothing statement, right? When you say gas is expensive, so are groceries, rent is up, sure, that's an observation about the world, but it doesn't really like, there's no substance, there's no policy thought behind that, there's no criticism of anything. It's just something that people are constantly talking about. It's the same that's true of health and wellness, where people are saying that, our insurance system is broken, our food is poisoned, things that people who are apolitical talk about all the time. It's again the same case when we're talking about, let's say, foreign intervention, money being sent to Ukraine, something that I always see blowing up on social media, and my friends who are apolitical like it, is when, so Joe Biden said $770.
They send you that shit too, Jack.
Sent $770 to California, but Ukraine got another however many bills. Just like this clear misinformation. And the fourth one that I see a lot, is college. People talking about college being a scam is really big in these right-wing circles. And as fewer young men are going to college, this really preys upon them. And of course, people who are doing this are like crypto guys who want to sell you their course, right? They're like, don't go to college, take my course. It's $100 a month on Patreon or whatever the fuck. And so all of these issues, all of these basic issues, when we're talking about costs, when we're talking about college, when we're talking about health and wellness, when we're talking about, our foreign intervention, like those four things, I don't think anyone having like an accidental, apolitical, just kind of bumping into it conversation with their friends has any perspective on that makes them feel positively about Democrats. The last time I think we had like this breaks through in the culture kind of talking point that we were winning on without having to do shit, I think was when we were talking about like criminal justice, right? When we were talking about reforming policing. People
Back in
having
2020,
those,
right?
yeah, people having those conversations. Sure, there were some people who were overreacting and saying Democrats want to defund all police. Wow, it was like, but I feel like when people were having that conversation about policing, Democrats were winning without having to do anything. When people were having conversations years ago about gay marriage, right? I feel like Democrats were winning that conversation without having to do anything. When people talk about abortion, Democrats are winning that conversation without having to do anything. And I feel like the issues that were most important in this election, Republicans did a really good job of connecting themselves culturally to without having like to actually break through with any of their candidates. And that's what worries me so much, is that these things that people can just have, again, apolitical conversations about when they don't feel like they're picking a side, when they're low information voters, those conversations that are being had, we are always attached to the institution fairly or unfairly that people do not like. And oftentimes when people criticize that institution, we tell them they're wrong for doing so, rather than saying, actually, you're right to say that college is a scam, but it's not for the reason that Donald Trump is telling you. It's not because like, oh, there's a bunch of people with blue hair at Columbia or like with Jack. It's like, no, there's a bunch of liberals like Jack at Columbia. It's like, it's because this administrative bloat that we have is causing kids to have to pay $80K a year. And it's like, these schools are so fucking greedy that if I go to Alabama, it's like I'm paying tuition and I have to pay to go see them play football. It's like, do you really need my money for that too? And so like, that's where I think we're failing, is that, people have this, and now I'm going on my whole long rant here, but it's like, people have this perception that we don't respond well to institutional criticism because we are the institution. But it's like, we do want to change it. We just have to stop telling people it's like, no, you're wrong. But we have to tell people it's like, actually, you're right, but not for the reason that Donald Trump is telling you, not the reason that J.D. Vance, not the reason that any of these Republicans are telling you, because they want you to hate it for the wrong reason. It's like, we love to hate shit. Like, we can unite behind that, but we got to tell people why instead of no.
Exactly.
Beleh and I used to talk about this all the time. He loves to argue with me. He's like, oh, like Mr. Institutionalist, Mr. What do you call me, Beleh? It's
neolib. I'm just kidding.
Neolib, Mr. Yeah,
he's not a neolib. I'm just
defender of the status quo. But
got to beat the neolib allegations.
I'm never gonna beat it down. But Beleh loves to Beleh loves to make fun of it for it. But it is true, right? We, like I said, became the nanny state. We're the mom, right? We are the mom that says no, eat your vegetables and go to bed. But that's wrong, right? Like, it's like I said, people are mad about things. People feel this general sense of discontent and feel like things are going wrong. And so instead of just being, nope, actually the economy is good. No, actually college is good. It's like that.
Terrible.
That's not a winning argument, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. We can fix these things. It's like housing, right? Instead of listing out a 10-step plan of how we're going to fix it and being like, oh, here's all this math and whatever, like, we'll just say, yeah, it's too damn expensive.
Just
That's
say
it. Like,
just say shit. Just like say more stuff.
we don't have to pretend like it's wrong.
I feel like we really lost out on an opportunity, especially with, how focused everyone in the country was, what was happening in LA when rent prices skyrocket after 137%. That was a great opportunity for us to say, here is why it is so difficult for you to buy a house. Here is why rents are going up so much. Because these landlords, these corporations whom we need to relegate, are willing to prey on you at any given moment. And there is some rent controlling that's going on in response to that. And I think it would have been really smart to make that a cultural moment where Democrats introduce some piece of legislation. I know we did that, but it's like, make a meal of it. Talk about it all the time. Connect it to Republican policy. Connect it to failures of the corrupt billionaires surrounding Donald Trump and how they want to protect their interest. It's like, that is a conversation that people were having all of the time, and without it being political, that we need to start investing in. I want people to talk about, wow, did you see what they did with rent controls in LA? Did you see how high prices were? oh, like they're finally imposing, some protections on that. If people can talk about that type of stuff and not even register that they're talking about Democrats, but again, priming people for when they hear these things again, that's a lot of success. I was talking to someone about the most effective, kind of more populist messages of Kamala's campaign. And we were kind of going back and forth about the price caps argument. And they were saying, it was like, well, you can't say that Kamala Harris didn't, run that much of a populist economic campaign, or that she didn't have these ideas, because, a couple of times in her speeches, she would talk about these potential price caps for groceries. And I was like, yeah, Kamala Harris talked about them in her speeches. Like, hear yourself, like in her speeches. Who is bumping into politics? Who of the like thousands or tens of thousands or however many people on election day, like Googled, wait, is Joe Biden not running? Do you think that person paid attention to a single Kamala Harris speech? Now, again, it's not bad that we do speeches, but we got to figure out that like people aren't bumping into our policy.
Flood the zone, Jack. Flood the zone.
I've become the Steve Bannon of the left. Like, is what I want to do at this point.
You get the facial hair and like storm the Capitol along with it. Maybe make an insurrection.
Max will be the Tucker Carlson, and I'll be like, I don't know, who am I?
Why is
do you want to be Laura Ingraham?
Funding?
Laura Ingraham.
I saw the
shut
clip.
Up and dribble, guys.
I saw the. There's a certain couple of guys that you can tell that too. We're gonna get into basketball takes later, or maybe just like for Ja, shut up and put the gun down. Just shut up and get off IG Live. I'm mad at the Grizzlies. I have a thing, if we're going to get into sports eventually, I have a thing where anyone who performs well against LeBron in a playoff series, I have like a 5-year embargo on ever liking them.
Oh, that's so funny.
So it's just like, I still hate Jimmy Butler because I'm just like, the 2020 finals, it's like, you made me so upset. It's like, no.
Bro,
like,
we won.
I don't care. It's like, if you perform well against LeBron in a playoff series, the only exception that I have for this is Jokic, because like, the only exception I have for this is Jokic is because he beat LeBron. And so if I hate Jokic and I'm cheering against him, then the guy who beat LeBron, like, I don't want to cheer for the guy who keeps beating LeBron to be bad, right? If like, this is the crazy like gymnastics that I do in my mind. Like, if Jokic goes down as like a top 8 player, top 5 player of all time, like, I can justify LeBron losing to him all the time.
LeBron lost to like a top 10 player. Like, what do you want him to do?
Exactly. It's like guys that LeBron beats and they play well against him, like John, that Memphis series, or like Jimmy Butler. I'm always just like, I hate you. Tatum is the same thing. Obviously, I'm going to hate the Celtics.
Jack, I hated Kevin Durant for the longest. We were like, furious. How old when he went to the Warriors? Like,
it was, what was it? It was 2016. I remember that.
It was right after
July.
that 2016 season where they choked the 3-1 lead. And I was so fucking pissed when I saw that.
I vividly remember, because it was on the 4th of July. I remember
it was
because we were in. You're Max, you're 21, but you're 20. Like, what? You guys are seniors,
cool.
right?
Yeah,
Am I wrong? Seniors.
Yeah. And
so, it was 4th of July. We must have been in like 8th grade then. I can't do that math.
I think we were going into 8th grade.
Something like that.
Yep, we were going into.
It was going into 8th grade because the Warriors had just blown the 3-1 lead. I remember that was a big part of everything I talk about every day. And I remember it was like it was the 4th of July. And for some reason, like, I can't even remember why, but I think I like got into a fight with my dad about something. It was like, he wanted me to help him, like turn on the grill. Like, we're having people over, like, or something like that. So I was just like, teenager, pissed at my dad. And then like, I look at the Bleacher Report notice, and it's like Kevin Durant to the, and I'm just like, fuck this day, man. And so I was just like, spent the whole day pouting. Like, I didn't watch the fireworks. I was just furious.
Bro,
I was just stewing the whole time. Well, that's why, and I know that we have some differences of opinions maybe on the pod about who is a preferable Super Bowl outcome here, is the difference that I have with people hating on the Chiefs, and this goes back to my greatness thing with Jokic, is that as a 49ers fan, it's like, if we're going to, we lose always in the worst horrific fashions, and especially of late, if Mahomes is not the greatest he's the second greatest quarterback of all time at this point, but I can justify losing to Mahomes. Like, I'm fine with that. I can justify losing to Mahomes. And the difference with him, like this Chiefs team and that 17, 18, 19 Warriors team is like, it's not like Derrick Henry signed with the Chiefs.
That's
it's
a
not
good point.
Like, they just brought
They're
in
just practicing devil magic and some they
it's
have the Ouija board under there or something.
They brought in washed DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm supposed to be mad that they keep winning. It's like,
Juju's still on the team, right?
Juju was so bad in the preseason that the Patriots cut him. the Patriots,
Yep.
who couldn't score like 12 points through most of the season. And the Chiefs brought him in, and now he works again because of the devil
Bro,
magic.
he had like a nice catch like last game, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do they even have Juju playing well? It is some dark black magic happening
It's
at
insane.
that stadium.
I love the Tony Romo bit during the Bills game when I don't even remember who it was. I think it was one of their rookies who was like, look at Mahomes throwing that over the shoulder pass, and he's just like, I can't remember who it was. Like the guy stepped out of bounds. And he's like, it was such a great pass by Mahomes that he couldn't even catch it because it was so great because he had never had a ball thrown to him like that. I was like, what are we doing, man? It's like, dude, it's like, get off of it. You're doing tricks
okay,
on
first
it.
of all, Jack, I'm a huge Chargers fan, as you can tell. Like,
That's terrible.
Okay,
That's
we don't have to
gonna
go
be
that
awful.
far. I went to Houston for the playoff game. Like,
Really?
that was even worse. Yeah, Max was texting me like, yo, bud, are you okay? Like, what happened?
Dude, he was going through it.
Why,
was like- and I
why do
was-
your boys always do that? It's just like whenever your team loses, like it's the most I ever get text messages.
Bro,
It's
it's
like
so annoying. I
when
had
Jokic
this
is
one
killing
girl that's
LeBron.
I had this one girl that's like me and my roommate's friends because we're both huge Chargers fans. So we went to Houston, and she had texted us. We have a group chat, a screenshot of the fucking score 3 hours after the game. 3 hours after the
Like,
game.
I know.
Me and my roommate Sam looked at each other and we're like, we're not responding.
Hold on. I got a secret for you guys. Do you guys want to know why I texted Beleh after that?
let us know.
This.
Of course,
I just wanted to
but
rub
he
it
wasn't
in.
as bad. He wasn't as bad as
That
the
was,
other ones.
I don't
There
know
you
if
go,
y'all
Justin
know.
Herbert fanboy.
I don't know if y'all know TikTok superstar Aaron Parnas. So he's a good friend of mine, and he's a Jets fan. And when the Niners beat the Jets to start the season, I was just like, it's like, all right, man, you're gonna have another terrible one. And then obviously what happened this season happened. I don't blame anyone. I don't know what like this whole we need to restructure, like maybe changes to the coaching staff. It's like
Dude,
Shanahan making it
no.
happen. I'm like, everyone was injured. Like Brock Purdy was injured through most of the season, like and played. I
Jack,
don't know.
I wish Ben was here. He's a really big 49ers fan, and
Huh?
he's been talking about getting rid of Shanahan. And I yell at him
Really?
every single podcast for that. I'm like, you
For
spoiled
who?
piece of shit.
I am
You guys
like,
do not understand how it feels like to have a bad coach.
That's like with the same thing that happened with Ohio State. It's like what's their coach? What's his first name? God, I don't follow college football enough, but like the Ohio State coach, after they lost to Michigan, I know you have to beat Michigan, but everyone's like, oh, he should be fired. I'm like, there are not that many good
Ryan Day,
coaches
yeah.
out there. Ryan Day, yeah. It's like, there's not that many good coaches out there. That's why everyone would like constantly want coaching turnover. It's just like, do you know who's out there? Who would we have brought in? Like Mike McCarthy? If we had fired Shanahan, it's like, no. Sure, we lose in the Super Bowl. It was like, I'm okay. I'm only greedy with LeBron, with my sports fandom, just because I know I'll have to talk about
LeBron.
I'm possessive of LeBron. We have a very close relationship, but it's just like I know I'm going to have to talk about LeBron for the rest of my life. And I know I'm not going to be talking about like the second Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl and like some conversation.
I am, Jack. I am.
Well, hopefully we'll win one in the next 40 years that makes it that I don't have to. But like I'm not that possessive of the other teams. I'm just like, just give me a couple of wins. It's like I'll lose in a divisional round. It's like I'm fine. It's just like make me not furious all the time.
It's more so I'm just sick of seeing the Chiefs win over and over and over and over again.
I'm okay. Again, I'm okay with it because I like the greatness, but they're fans. It's not like they're Patriot fans. It's like I don't know who the bad Chiefs are.
It's true.
Like the bad
That's a good
Chiefs fans
point.
are.
But like
I was gonna say
Eagles, Saquon. Sorry, Max. Eagles, Saquon Barkley, bro. Come on. Come on. Like, I would love to see Saquon get a championship. I like Jalen Hurts.
Phillies, you like Jalen Hurts?
I do like Jalen Hurts. Even
Jalen
though he's
Hurts
in
is
the same
little...
class as my beloved Herbert, I still like Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is a little corny for me. I like Saquon a lot. I'd
Jack,
be really
imagine
happy to see
Herbert
Saquon
on the
win.
Niners. Imagine that.
We'd be worse because Brock Purdy is the sixth best quarterback in the league.
Come on.
Brock Purdy gets no credit. But that's a whole different conversation. Max, I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask. I mean, you're a 49ers fan. I've after 21 long years of declaring football to be like a just cash grab and like a time sink, I've decided to declare my allegiance to the Buffalo Bills.
It's a terrible decision.
Listen. Hate it all you want. Runs in the family. But Josh Allen humiliated the Niners, 35-10. How do you feel about that? I mean, listen.
I feel like I think McCaffrey came back. Was that the game that McCaffrey came back for? Or is that?
I think so.
Yeah, the one that he got like hurt in the first quarter is like, oh, this is great. It's just like, let's waste a snow game that we're going to lose on this. I was watching that on a plane, and it's like one of those things where I want to express my rage and my anger, but there are people around me. I always love when guys just like are just like trying to make a meal of it, just like trying to make a big show on a plane, like they got the hat on or whatever. I was watching watching one of the Packers games. I think it was Sunday Night Football. I think it wasn't when they were playing the Eagles. It was some other like 20 slot. Some guy had like his Packers hat on, and just anytime anything would happen, it's just like, oh. I was like, we get it. Like, I see the hat guy. Like, we get it. Like, you don't have to be part of the entertainment for us. Like, you do not have to be doing color commentary on this. So I was just like, I knew that game was over. It was a snow game. McCaffrey wasn't going to be able to play. Like, is there any place that Josh Allen is going to be more dominant than that? So I was just like, this whole season, I was just like, let's just pack it in. After we lost to the Vikings, and I know like what the Viking season was, but I was like, oh, that's where this thing is going. Because like when you lose to the Vikings, you're like, come on. And I think Justin Jefferson was like hurt through 2 quarters of that game, and we still lost. I was like, yeah, this thing's a wrap.
Hey,
like,
you gotta respect the Vikings. I mean, I know they lost to the Rams, but
Do you?
like
Do you
after that
respect the
playoff loss,
Vikings?
maybe, dude. So what happened with the Chargers playoff loss? It was because it was the first playoff game. It was so bad, but then like every other game afterwards was kind of worse. So everyone just stopped talking about the Chargers. I'm like, thank God, bro. I just stopped
That's true.
receiving messages.
But y'all are building something. You have something to look forward to. It's not like
Jim Harbaugh, and
it's not like the window is shut type of thing. And I think it was like an overperformance. I don't know what the line was at for wins to start the season.
I think we were at 7 wins for the season, and we got 11. So
again, that's like me. I was like, if we can just like perform, if we just can like not ruin all of my Sundays, then I'm happy.
Jack, I think it's like Kamala Harris's election. You know, I think
it's just like save a couple of Senate seats. Yeah, it's like as long as we win Wisconsin, it's like I'm gonna be fine.
So set the bar low so you're not disappointed. Just don't completely shit the bed and you're good, right? That's the general.
She didn't lose New Jersey.
Didn't lose New Jersey. That's something I was talking. I don't know who was I talking to this about, but I just had David Hogg on my show. I was gonna say yesterday, but the episode went out today.
He's running for vice chair, right?
He's running for vice chair, so we were talking about that, and he brought up how he's still kind of reckoning with how a year ago he spoke to Biden and he's like, what do I need to do to win young people? And he said to me, I think he said this other places, so I'm not breaking any news here. He's like, I just wish I told him to drop out. And, with the Hegseth confirmation, which I think is one of the worst things Republicans have done in a while, I think the child tax credit might be quietly, like getting rid of that might be quietly the worst. Like,
make a list, add it to the list.
Child poverty cut in half. Get it out of here. Like, that shit is crazy. Like, all the Republicans talking about, I don't know who the one congressman who's like, I started working when I was 13.
In high school. In high school. I'm like, do you want to deliver packages on, like, bicycles?
If you want to eat in middle school, if you want breakfast, then maybe you pick up a couple of shifts. Like, these people drive me crazy. But the Hegseth thing, I think, might be one of the worst things Republicans have done in a while. And I was thinking about it. I was like, not that I want to do too much, like, Biden revisionist, like, hate or whatever, but if he had stuck in the race, maybe we lose Slotkin, maybe we lose Baldwin, maybe we lose Gallego. I feel like Gallego would have won no matter what. Maybe we lose Andy Kim. It's like, if Biden had stayed in the race, they might have confirmed Matt Gaetz. Like, I know people hate Matt Gaetz, but like, they might have confirmed Matt Gaetz. And so maybe I'm too Kamala lived up, and I know you guys had your conversation about what her next steps are for 2028. I did. Was that the last pod or 2 pods ago?
Yeah, I think it was the last pod.
Because you guys teased this one as a very special guest. And I was like, it's like, now I'm really going to have to deliver. So hopefully that's come true. But, when you think about it again, and like as many criticisms as you want to levy against the Kamala campaign, it's like they did move the dial. Like, things got better. Her favorables improved drastically throughout the entirety of the campaign.
All the states she campaigned in were much more narrow than the general shift everywhere.
And the economic messaging landed. And so that's why I keep going back and forth. And it's a criticism I've levied a lot. I feel like I've just like directed this conversation too much in the pod. If y'all have something specific you want to talk about, let me know.
I love this.
But it's the conversation I keep having about these just like really, I don't know if I don't want to demonetize you by using this word, but it's like,
we don't make any money.
Like,
you're good.
And I guess we can say whatever we want now, which is a whole nother rant that I'm really angry about. It's Trump's America. But it's like all these pussy-ass billionaires who are like, I think it was Stephanie Rule talking about it. It's like, if I had fuck you money, I might say fuck you a couple more times than these guys do. And I think the perfect encapsulation of you having money does not make you smart is how stupid these guys' read of this thing is. As like, Trump is hopefully gone in 4 years, and maybe there's just like this massive change in the cultural landscape of the country, and there's this huge revitalization of the Democratic Party, and like woke comes back. It's like I'm missing woke at this point. And these guys, their calculus, they still think that the vote count from the night of the election is how it played out. Like, right when we were like, it was too close to call in Virginia for like an hour or two, more so than it usually is. And I think that they honestly believe that there's been this massive cultural shift in the country. Sure, Zuck is doing his thing because he wants to appease Trump, because he wants that FTC case to go away. But I think these guys actually think that there's this huge cultural movement that they're trying to get on board with, that there's just not, in my opinion. I do think that Democrats certainly need to take like big steps to better embed ourselves in the culture, but I don't truly think that America wants what the Republican Party represents in terms of their cultural agenda.
No.
I just think it was the economic pressure of this election.
Economic and also immigration too, I think was a big part.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, the broken media environment. And so
when how much of it is just people what they're seeing? Like I was like, say, it's like you're absolutely right. And it's like we have to change. I mean, how much what you're seeing, what you're feeling, like if you want to capture this moment, it's like they're going to overstep it when all of a sudden ICE agents are going into your local restaurant, like going to schools. Like when people see that, they're going to be like, I mean, hold on, wait a minute. I just wanted lower gas prices. When the fucking tariffs jack up our coffee prices 25%, people are going to be like, wait a minute. I thought they paid the tariffs. It's like, no, that's the thing we pay. Again, they're going to overstep this moment. Like when all of a sudden, whatever next right gets rolled back, when Meals on Wheels gets cut, when the federal funding for cancer research for all these vaccines and things, when shit starts to hit the fan with bird flu, when your eggs are $20
and it is in everyone's face. I cannot tell you how many friends have talked to me about, a buddy of mine's applying to law school right now, and he's like, you are as well. I know this cycle is
that's awful.
Tough. I know this is a bad one. Like I'm not even applying to law school, and I get like Instagram reels where it's just like the bit where it's like, I'm not funny, I applied to law school in like 2025. It's like, it's just like everyone's
just kill me. It's awful. Just kill me.
But one of the programs that he applied to, like, sent him an email where it's like, we don't exist anymore because Trump cut our funding. I had a friend whose partner is in the military, and like they don't know if they're going to get their job or their appointment or move to where they need to be because like we don't know if we're hiring people. It's like, it is impacting people's lives already in a way that's inescapable. And again, like, this is why I think that the over-exaggeration of this cultural moment is really going to come back to bite these people in the ass, because like they're kind of pot committed to this being their worldview that they're espousing.
That's a good point, right? I think that's a great point, and I think they're overstepping with a lot of these issues. But I think as Democrats, we kind of do have to understand that like there are some issues that are pretty unpopular with the American people, and that doesn't mean you abandon the issues, right? You got to find a way to message them. And like Max, we were talking about, like, for example, like the trans community, like approaching that with like humility, and being very compassionate, but also approaching that with like a libertarian sense. Like, hey, you do whatever the fuck you want in your life, like the government should not be reaching in and telling you how to live your life.
Stop being weird. Stop being weird to people.
Exactly.
Stop asking people about their genitals, you weirdos.
I think another issue that we had trouble with the last 4 years is the border. Like, I am an immigrant. Like, my family seeked asylum when I was like 3 years old. So I think I have like the right to speak about this a bit. And I think for the first 3 years of Biden's administration, right, the border crossings weren't too bad the first year and a half because he had Title 42 in place. And I think the first, like, after Title 42 was removed, it wasn't as bad, but then it started getting like really bad in terms of like border crossings.
All the people who did not come during that period. Yeah.
It was a horrible time. But we downplayed it over and over and over. You can't do that when the numbers are showing that like 500,000 people are entering the country. When during President Obama's term, like 500,000 people would enter the whole year, right? So I think that we also have to understand that like some of these issues our stance or our lack of a stance is not popular. Like, I wish Biden did come out earlier and be like, look, year two, we're going to get an immigration bill through. Let's work through, at that time he had like a house and said, I know you have limited capital, but even just talking about it that early, or even issuing, he waited until like year 3.5 to issue executive orders.
Yeah, and AOC said this. It's like Donald Trump's plan, his immigration plan, is like, is it popular, or have we not properly communicated why people should think it's unpopular and why they should think it's bad? Because we just didn't talk about it. Like, that was the MO of the party. Like, that was the MO of the parties. Just like, when people ask about immigration, deflect, don't talk, deflect, don't talk. And it's just like, that's the problem. Like, when we come back to flooding the zone, talking about these things all the time, it's just like, have a stance, say something, be nuanced. Like,
But here's the thing, you
Put
can't.
some buts and some ums in there. Like, it's okay.
You can't, because remember, like, again, you have groups that are these dipshits that come in and protest your office saying, like, you need open borders, you need these humane things. When Sunrise Movement comes and yells at you saying the IRA isn't big enough, it's like we have that awful feedback loop of Democratic groups and nonprofits all demand you talk a certain way, speak a certain way, talk about it. Oh, immigration has to be this, has to be that. They're going to punish you if you talk about it in a nuanced way. And when we punish our party members like that, when we have these nonprofit groups that punish members, it's like we can't have that. Like that's why they're not doing these things. Like again, why Biden didn't come out and say these things, why he didn't come out and talk about immigration, why they didn't do it, is because if you describe them as, remember during State of the Union, right?
Yeah.
He said like an illegal alien, he spoke about Laken Riley, and then he had to apologize for it. That is why they don't talk about these things.
I think there is too much like policing when it comes to that. I will say, like, Max, I think you retweeted on the account like Barack Obama's speech on immigration back in 2008, and I thought it was like, look, I am an immigrant. Like, I'm literally an asylum seeker. And I'm like, yeah, this is like good. This is what I agree with. Like, Obama was basically talking about, look, if you're here right now and you're undocumented and you haven't committed any crimes and you're working, we'll give you a pathway. You have to pay.
Pay
you
the
have
fine.
to wait. Go back in the line.
You can't cut the line.
Fine. You have to like at least try to learn English. That is like extremely popular. But then he said, if you're a criminal, you've committed, if you've committed some bad crimes, we're sending you back. And I'm like, that is the path forward. Like that's the message that people agree with, because people do have compassion about people who have been here for like 20 years, working their ass off, paying taxes, right? And now they have kids who were born here. People
and there's
have
nothing more
for that.
deflationary than immigration, right? It's like Springfield, Ohio was such a funny example to me, because it's like those were people welcomed into a community in the Rust Belt who single-handedly revitalized it, not only by working those important jobs, but it allowed people in that community who didn't previously have employment and weren't going to have them in those factories to then like work as drivers. Like people were just like, all these jobs were springing up for people like to drive people around. Like they'd have their vans, they'd pick people up, translators, restaurants were being revitalized. It's like, it was great for the community and it was deflationary. Like the local officials were like, no, these people should be here. And now they're leaving in mass, and that'll be devastating to that community. Very low crime
rates too.
And speaking of the crime rate, I think the initial reporting about the detentions and deportations that Trump has done is about, I don't want to get these numbers wrong, but who gives a fuck? They just make sense even if they're a couple points off. Is like 53% have been criminals.
Saw the same thing. Yeah.
Under Biden, it was like 82%.
Right. Well, crazy. But it's how you go. When again, immigration policy is hard, because you want to do mass deportations. Nobody ever talks about how Obama got those deportations done, right? Everyone talks about, oh, he got all these deportations, right? He was a deporter in chief. How did he do it though? The point being is he went to jails. They had ICE go to people who were already arrested, not going to workplaces, not going to homes.
They also include that number in it too.
Again, because it's about how you do these metrics, right? Statistics are great because either you understand them or you don't, and you can always parse out who doesn't understand them, and then you can call them a fucking moron. Because Obama went about it in a more humane way. You go to jails. Anyone who's committed a crime, you go, oh, let me look at your status. Oh, you're already like I already have you in custody, right? All I have to do is check, are you legal? Are you not? Oh, you're not? Bye-bye. If you're illegal, then not my problem. Like that's...
And Obama also increased, from what I know, he increased the applications for asylum seekers too, and refugees. So he had a very like balanced approach to it that is popular with the American public. I'm not saying that because I'm an asylum seeker myself, but like maybe. But he had a very balanced approach to it. And the dreamers, I mean, like, fuck, dreamers are so popular, dude. Like, if Trump decides to, I don't think he's stupid enough to like go after dreamers again. I don't think he's stupid enough. I mean, he was dumb enough to pause all the loans.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, my position on this administration, I was just really hoping that he was just like going to be happy having the plane back and not having to go to prison. But no, I would be really worried about that.
The Coke machine.
It's the only thing I respect about him. If I was president, I too would have a button of people bringing me Coke all the time. Not the
have a white monster button.
Not the Don Jr. type of Coke, but but no, you made a great point there, where it's just like, yeah, like dreamers are really popular. We don't exactly know what's popular in our plan yet because we don't talk about it, right? Until we talk about then we can kind of figure out what's popular, what breaks through. Again, why people just have to say things, and why, like, not to be fucking blowing smoke for y'all, but like why this is so important. And I really appreciate the work that y'all are doing right now, because we just need to figure out like how to talk to people and just like have conversations. Maybe it's not even to figure out how to talk to people, because that just sounds so robotic and weird. But just like have the conversations, people will respond.
Just listen. And a lot of the times the popular I feel like you can, and I feel like people are like, well, a lot of populists don't have the right like policies. I'm like, no, like you don't, exactly what you said. We don't know what is popular. Like going out and building housing and breaking some of these regulations and limiting, what these local cities can do and stop, states coming in from building housing. That could be really popular, and that's like good policy, even be policy. So,
well, but here's the thing: you don't even have to. You don't. Sorry, not to cut you off, but like you don't even have to talk policy. Here's the thing: Beleh always. I mean, again, Jack Beleh is always ragging on me because he's like, "Oh, I'm the populist. Like we gotta be what's popular." But here's the thing: you don't even have to talk the policy. Talk the feeling.
Yeah.
Beleh is right. Like I spent like a week thinking about it because he's like, dude, just channel the feeling, and I was like, no, but it's incoherent. The policy's bad. You don't cap rents and then don't increase the supply. Like that's not going to work.
Policy later.
But but just think,
get the feeling.
Put the policy in a boardroom with a bunch of nerds like me who want to talk about it. When you talk to people, all you say is the rent is too damn high, and they're going to go, I like that, and I agree because it is. Channel the feeling, right? Your prices are too damn high. You want to talk about a 10-step plan to increase supply and subsidize demand, like fucking whatever.
Save that for the Elizabeth Warren conference, which I love, and I'm going to go to, but just like save it for that. Yeah, we need to keep having these conversations. I do, unfortunately, have to run to class, so we will have to save.
Love all the work you do too.
I appreciate it. So we'll have to save the rest of this conversation. Hopefully it's not the first 100 days. Maybe we do it in the first 50 so we can speak again soon, but I appreciate y'all having me on.
Let's do that. I'll make sure Ben and Dylan are on too, because Ben will love talking to you about.
I know we didn't get to talk Lakers that much, so I got to make sure we do that.
It's okay.
Well, we'll talk Super Bowl after too. Jack,
we'll
have a good
everything
day.
of yours in the comment section on our Twitter. So thank you.
Appreciate that, guys.
What class do you have?
It's a class on primates.
What's your major?
Political science, but I'm just like I just have to fill like the last science requirement for just like being here. So I'm taking a class on primates. Yeah.
You graduating
I'm ready to be done.
Congrats,
I'm graduating. Couldn't come sooner.
All of us. We'll meet up. Are you from? Where are you from, by the way?
I'm from Florida,
okay,
Orlando.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Orange County, Florida. I saw that because you posted that. I was like, is he from Orange County, California? I was like, no, that doesn't look like it.
Moving out to LA soon though, so I'll be seeing you guys not too distant future.
Dude, hit me up. Yeah, we'll take you out.
We'll take you down to Holland Rays. We'll give you the spiciest chicken in Southern California.
So good.
All right, Jack. It's great having you. This has been an episode of Brogressive with Jack Cocchiarella, famous progressive YouTuber. Thanks so much.
Famous. Whoa. This guy's saying
you'll always be famous, Jack.